So we've had this conversation a bit about the importance of visibility. Can you
Yes.
share more about that?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, right? About saying how we have community events here in Rochester, but there's no Latino community. Where are they? Well, and it just goes back to showing to you that like it's not a simple outreach, right, on Facebook, or to say we're gonna have this event. It's you need to be out there having those conversations on the floor, right? I think for me as an organization, as Unidos, what I've learned is that you need to have those door-to-door conversations. I mean, if you don't have boots on the ground, then you're never gonna get anywhere, right? It's not easy. We talk to people regarding different things, and what often happens is that they say that they don't feel welcome, or that they don't feel like they belong in the community, whether it's because they've been stopped by the police, whether it's because they had interactions with different people in the community that has deterred them from being in these events. But that doesn't mean that we're not here. And a lot of the people don't turn out to these events because they either don't have documents, right, and are afraid to show up. They can't drive, and they see sometimes events with the police department, and they get scared. But having us being able to be there, and kind of say it's okay, we're here. It's just a way for us to be able to incorporate us into the community, and that I think that's what matters. And I think my biggest thing is we're here, right? Just because you don't see us at the events that they have locally, this is the event that I wanted to be able to kind of see, like, hey, we're here. Where it's not like we don't like to come out to events. You just need to know how to get to us better.
So could you share more about how educators might learn from that same idea of invitation and hospitality?
Yeah, I think as educators, I think educators, what they often don't see is what's actually happening within the community, right? They don't know some of the things that happen in this Hispanic community, right? Whether someone is going to school and they're undocumented, they probably don't know whether they're paying out of pocket or not out of pocket, which most people are paying out of pocket because they can't apply for financial aid, right? So I think a better way for educators to learn would be to learn, what's going on with the undocumented community. What are the issues that they face going to college, right? Whether it's trainings. We're having the Minnesota Dream Act training at RCTC November 29th. And it's specifically for students, but it's also for educators to understand, how hard it is, not just to fill out the FAFSA form, but to go extra steps, right? And it's sometimes kids having to do this because the parents are first generation, so they don't know a lick of English sometimes, or they don't know what the documents mean, right? And I think that's the important part, because I don't like to say that that some people don't have it hard, but usually in the undocumented community, you do have it harder because there's so much more things that you have to fill out, that people don't realize that. A lot of Americans and think that they can just fill out their FAFSA or have their parents help them, right? I can tell you first experience with myself, like my mom did not know what to do. I had to do everything on my own, which it was a lot, and I can tell you that um, it's something that weighs on you, and it's something that makes you almost not want to go to school, right? Because there's so many more added, like, difficulties to attend to college. So and also just trainings. I think just trainings when it comes to understanding a little bit more of the undocumented community and overall the Hispanic community. But yeah.
So when you had mentioned that you had to fill out the paperwork, if you had an issue with a teacher, very similarly, or let's say you wanted to do a grade appeal, or maybe you were in a class where you thought that there was just something that wasn't working right between you and the teacher, or perhaps even you noticed that some students got to do a redo an assignment and you didn't get asked to, would you feel reluctant to ask the teacher, or do you think that you would go ahead and ask the teacher for that reconsideration?
I think I am very, very lucky to have a mom and a dad that always told me to stand up for myself. which I think I could have, but I would have still had issues, right? Going up to someone in power is always something very difficult for the Latino community. But I'm lucky that my mom always instilled in me, you don't let other people walk all over you or your rights. So I often found myself speaking for myself, but also for others, right? That they were just like, well, I don't understand this. I'm just gonna let it go, or I'm not gonna do this project, or I failed at this project, right? Knowing that like, yo, you had to work like so many jobs, right? And you had to be in school, but that's why you couldn't do your test. And what the Latino community sometimes fails to understand that there's chances, there's redos that we can do. Just because you commit a mistake doesn't mean that it's over. And I think that's what our community is unfortunately taught. That if you make a mistake, there's no coming back from it, right? So I think yes, there's people who don't, fight for the next what they need, right? But it's also because it's been taught to us that like you don't make mistakes, and if you do, you just live with the consequences. So but yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I think that one of the next steps could be to have more
Yes,
conversations
of course.
about that. We oftentimes call it the hidden curriculum. Things that you can do and ways that you can approach your teacher or education that create a better safety net.
Yeah. And we're actually, one of our things that we do at Unidos, we work on education justice, and we're actually part of the committee who fought for ethnic studies from K to 12 that's being implemented. So I'm just very excited for that to come, to fruition. We don't get taught about our entire history in schools, so it'd be nice to see what this next generation will look like. So.
Well, thank you. And if RCTC students or other students who would happen to come across this video, if they would like to get to know more about the issues you've talked about, would you be willing
Of course,
to have that conversation?
Yeah, of course. You can reach out to me on my own Facebook page, which is under Marco Loera Alvarez, or you can reach me at Unidos, Minnesota. But yes, more than happy to assist.
And if people don't know, or they maybe even disagree, are you okay with them having a conversation?
Of course, yes. I'm open to conversation. I've always thought that was the main principle and the main way that problems get solved is having those conversations. I actually in school, I got once we were in English class in 10th grade, and we were talking about undocumented community, and someone said, well, they're lazy, they're this, they're that, and instead of getting up and shouting and being like, this is me, I'm not lazy, my parents pay my taxes, I stood up and I calmly explained the situation. And I'm not saying that I changed his mind, but I hope that people were able to understand a little bit about the situation, and not that we don't have to agree, but we don't have to yell at each other. So
well, thank you so much.
yes.